As South Africa prepares for the State of the Nation address later today, attention is once again turning to accountability, delivery, and how public promises are translated into measurable results. Across Africa, governments face growing fiscal pressure, rising public scrutiny, and urgent development demands. And one of the least visible but most critical lines of defense in both public and private institutions is internal audit, the function that checks controls, flags risks, strengthens procurement oversight, and supports ethical governance. Well, to help us understand how this works in practice, we're now joined by Arlene-Lynn Volmink, who's the Chief Executive Officer of the Institute of Internal Auditors in South Africa. Arlene-Lynn, thank you very much indeed for joining us, and welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Peter. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
I have to tell you that I have been looking forward to this interview because it's pretty nostalgic for me. I was an auditor once upon a time in my life, years and years ago, so I understand the work that your colleagues and your associations people do. So let's talk about the State of the Nation address. The government is going to make some promises, look at spending commitments and priorities. I suppose the question for us is, where do internal auditors fit to make sure that those promises turn into real and measurable delivery?
Thank you so much, Peter. And, I'd like to start with our purpose, our why. And our why we exist, is to improve the governance, risk management, and control environment within organizations. We are there to add and protect value and to serve public interest. So the government will call for departments, state-owned enterprises, organizations to do more with less, focusing on tightening of budgets and budget disciplines, and efficient use of public resources. And that's where we as internal audit come in. We are there to hold these departments, organizations accountable, so that at the end of the day, we serve public interest and there's actual service delivery. So very much focused on outcomes.
So tell me a little bit about your ability to be or to ask for accountability, because in the end, particularly internal auditors in the public sector are employed by those that they are holding to account. That must be a challenge.
It is a challenge, but I think we always explain it in terms of independence and objectivity. Independence is really our positioning, and that's why you'll find that we report directly to the boards or the governing council, sometimes through the audit committee, and that really protects us to have an independent voice. But what our global internal audit standards called for is also objectivity. That is a state of mind or a mindset, where we really need to apply our judgment and exercise professional courage within organizations. So there is a challenge for internal auditors, particularly, as you say, where we speak up about corruption and things we see in organizations. But this is why it's important for us to continuously reinforce who we are. I think there's a misunderstanding and a misconception of the profession. We are there to really assist and support management. We are strategic advisors. And, our currency, I always say our currency is trust. So that's important. We're there to serve the public, serve public trust, add value to organizations. But to do so, we need to have courage as auditors, and that's why it's embedded within our principles.
Yeah, I'm going to go on for this independence thing a little bit more, because you can get to a point where you come up with an audit report, you find the issues, you report to these senior people. What if they say, "Great work, Arlene-Lynn, I'll take it from here," and then nothing happens?
I think, Peter, and, you mentioned you were an auditor as well. But this is where our profession is evolving. Peter, I was also an auditor myself in practice. I'm non-practicing, but I was practicing for over 22 years. And management, relationship building is so important for us along this journey of becoming strategic advisors. So once I have my good audit report, it's up to me to really sit down with management and say, what are practical recommendations? How can the focus is not on having a lengthy 100-page report, but really, how can we take the results of the audit, take those controls that weren't working and work together to improve those controls. So we sit down with management and we come up with actionable plans, because at the end of the day, we want to have sustainable controls, not just corrective actions, but sustainable controls. We also want a good control environment, because that talks to governance. So many of the times now in these days, Peter, internal auditors are focusing on culture audits as well, because to have a good control environment, good governance in place, you need a good culture within the organization. And that's where internal audit really comes alive and contributes.
I suppose, from what I remember, and I think you've mentioned it quite a bit now when you talk about systems and internal control, that sometimes people think that a focus on actual transactions and actual events is what internal audit does. But I would imagine that what's most important is to make sure that the systems are designed in a way that things will work on their own, because with weak systems, the opportunity for all those transactions to go wrong perhaps become greater.
Yes, 100%, Peter. And we do things like data analytics, etc., which helps us just to work smarter. But our focus, as you say, is really on the controls, what is in place to prevent things from going wrong. Our focus as internal auditors is really not to look back at things that have happened, transactions that have happened, but to try to support management to look forward and ensure that risks don't materialize. So you'll see that we focus as a profession on risk-based auditing, risk-based planning, and then also, as I say, on controls to make sure that there are systems in place to protect the organization, to protect value. So yes, our focus is not on transactions. Our focus is on risks and controls.
So, skills must be a big issue for you, because you have to have skilled people to be able to do this work, for us to be able to feel safer with those systems that you describe. Do we have enough skills in terms of internal auditors in the country?
The short answer, Peter, is no, and that's why internal audit is included on the critical skills list within South Africa. And I think you'll find that there's deficit across Africa as well. We were fortunate this week to host workshops with all the leaders of the 28 Africa affiliates, as well as our global board of directors and global executive leadership team in Africa. So I think you can tell that there's definitely an interest and an investment in Africa when it comes to internal audit skills. Our flagship qualification or certification is the Certified Internal Auditor. To give you an idea, in South Africa, we have 9,000 professional members, 1,500 student members, but we only have 1,200 certified internal auditors. So our work is really cut out for us. We need to support our practicing internal auditors to have the appropriate qualifications. Certified internal auditor is that really gives you the foundation of knowledge of the standards and the content to be able to practice. But obviously within organizations, what is also important is to understand the business. We really can't serve management or, serve the board if we don't understand the business. So certified internal auditor, we don't have enough of them across the country. And that is where all these leaders have come together to plan strategically around the roadmap to improve that landscape, Peter.
We're running out of time, but on your wish list, what's the biggest ambition you have for internal audit here, and also from what you've been hearing across the continent, just so that we can really tell better stories in terms of dealing with things like corruption and poor systems, etc.?
I think biggest on my wish list, and I think this comes through in our Vision 2035 report as well. And it's open to the public to read about our profession and how we see it looking in 2035. But I think for me, going back to my days of being an auditor, and even all the stories I hear now, day in and day out, from our chief audit executives across the country, is that there is still a misunderstanding and a misconception of what internal audit is. We are really there as strategic advisors. We are not compliance checkers. We are not watchdogs. We are there to walk the journey with management, to achieve strategic objectives, to have good controls in place. We want to see ethical and effective leadership within our country, and internal audit is part of that solution.
And I wish you the best with that. And I doff my hat because I know how hard your people work and how important that work is. So, Arlene, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you.
That was Arlene-Lynn Volmink, who's the CEO of the Institute of Internal Auditors in South Africa.